Hello and welcome to Tutorial Tuesdays. Today is not going to be a tutorial. Instead, it is going to be a video showing my methods of sculpting, and the sculpting subject is Ton. Ton Roosendaal, the founder of Blender. I guess I should explain that for those of you who are not familiar with him, but if you are not familiar with him, then you totally should be. So, I went ahead and did the first two steps, which is getting reference of an exact front-on shot of him, an exact side shot, and then also making a cheat sheet of every possible photo, as much reference as possible as you can find of the person that you are sculpting. Finding as much reference as possible is very important because it will show you lots of details in lots of different poses of the person and will give you a better idea of who that person is. They always say if you're painting a portrait of someone, either have them there in person so you can see what they really look like, or get as many pictures of them as possible, because just because you have one picture, that's not the perfect representation of that person. They look different every day of the week, and you want every single possible detail of every single possible angle of that person. And then I also got some facial anatomy pictures, because having a good understanding of the underlying anatomy of the human face is very important for sculpting the human face. It will tell you like what bumps to make on the face and stuff if you can't particularly tell from the photo, and that is how you achieve realism as opposed to a caricature, which I'm still not perfect or very good at, but we're going to try here tonight in just a couple hours. This video is going to be long, so prepare yourself, and hopefully you'll learn some neat things about workflow from me. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and unhide the cube. I'm also going to I'm not even going to turn on screencast keys because it will slow down things too much. So I'll just try my best to say what keys I am using. So the first and most important thing of the entire process, in my opinion, is getting the right eye distance, like making the eyes the correct distance apart. So we're going to go ahead and create a sphere, and 32 is fine, 32 segments. We're going to rotate it X on the 90 degrees, on the X-axis by 90 degrees, and then scale it down to sort of match the eye. Now, human eyes, and they look like they would take up a large area here, but they're actually pretty small. My sculpting instructor back at school said the human eye is generally about the size of a quarter. So we're going to follow the picture, the reference, the perfect straight-on view, to get the eye distance perfect, because if the eyes aren't perfectly spaced apart, then it's not going to look like Ton when it's done. I mean, if it looks like him when we're done, I'll be pretty lucky. But we're going to go ahead and try to guess the scaling here. Something like that seems about right. The eye should be no bigger than a quarter generally in diameter. So I'm going to scale this down until it looks about right, somewhere around there. Then I'm going to add an edge loop right here where the iris ends. It looks like this needs to be moved over just a little bit to center it. And now that should go pretty nicely around. Then we're going to hit Alt-D to move the sphere over here, and that doesn't just duplicate it, that also makes it linked. So now when I modify this sphere to bring in the iris, the other sphere over there will be manipulated as well, and that is the beauty of creating a linked model. You only have to modify one of them. Now the human eye, as many of you are probably familiar with, the iris goes in like so. That's what gives the eyes depth when you look at people, and especially in animated characters, it's very, very important to give the eyes depth. So next we're going to do the pupils, which need to match the pupils on the image pretty well, which the inner circle here does. So I'm just going to extrude that and scale it in, and then we're going to give this a few new materials. The first material is going to be white, of course, for the eyeball. So that's already fine as is. We want to switch to cycles, by the way, just because I like that rendering engine better. And we're going to go ahead and tighten this up with some edge loops as well for if we render it later. Also, just so it looks better in the viewport. So like that should be pretty good. So then we are going to select everything that is the iris, and we are going to add a new material, assign, and new. And for this one we want to hit use nodes, by the way. Then for this material we're going to use the color picker and come over here and pick the general color of his eyes. And then we're going to copy that and paste it into the viewport color. It looks like it's sort of grayish, bluish almost. Then, of course, the iris which this edge loop should also be that color, by the way. The iris, of course, is going to be black, and so should the viewport color, just for sculpting purposes. And we also have to assign it, of course. So now we have Tan's eyes in the correct orientation and location. Let's go to the side view and make sure they match up here too, which is a little bit hard to see because the glasses are in the way, which is unfortunate that I couldn't find a better side picture of Tan, but that is quite alright. We're going to assume that's pretty close to being accurate, and then we're going to move on our merry way. So we want these eyes to be centered right along the axis. So I'm just going to click and drag until these are just about on the center. Another way you can do this is if you join the two objects and then put the center axis to 0. Oh, by the way, if you don't feel like watching a multiple hour long video, then you can just watch the time lapse that I'm going to upload later. Then now that we moved the eyes, we also want to move the reference to match. The reference was not perfect, and that's perfectly alright. We just needed it to get the correct eye distance. But now it needs to be pretty close to perfect. So somewhere around there seems pretty good for being centered. And the next step is to have a cube, which I have one. It was just hidden this entire time. What a twist. And then we are going to scale that up to match about the width of the head. So this is not a perfect straight-on view of Tan, so we're going to have to sort of wing the width here. And then we are going to add a subdivision surface modifier up to 2 divisions, scale it up even higher, and then apply the subsurf. Then this is where the sculpting begins. This is the fun stuff. This is what used to daunt me back before I realized the joys of sculpting. So what we're going to do is go into sculpt mode, and we're going to go over here to display and turn this to, actually shading, sorry. We're going to use a matte cap, which shows it shaded in the viewport, and having something reflective like this can be pretty helpful too. So from the side view and front view, it is all doing pretty well. We want to go ahead and go to topology and enable dynamic, and 25 is pretty good as a start. Then we're just going to start dragging this out to sort of match the proportions, which this is not going to affect the topology yet, but we just want this to match the general size of Tan's head. He has a very tall head, which is quite interesting. And if we don't have enough topology, we can just switch to draw by hitting D and then just clicking around, and since we're in automatic topology, it will do that automatically. We also want to turn on X symmetry, and we want to go ahead and symmetrize it, which you can only do if the dynamic topology is on. So then we want to go ahead and start scaling this out and matching his general head shape. Now the hair area should probably be a little bit lower than the hair, but that is quite alright because he will have hair and nobody will know the difference. Probably not going to add real hair in this tutorial, might sculpt some in, then maybe we'll add some actual hair next week. Next week I'd like to retopologize this, so this could turn into a multi-week thing, especially since the first week is going to be so long. But let's just go ahead and keep matching up with the image. And this is going to look exceptionally messy at first, and that is quite alright. That is allowed. We just want to get this matching the general proportions of Tan's head. Like so. So that's pretty good. You can see that we already have a head. That is quite nice. We can go ahead and draw in some stuff here and maybe thicken this up a little bit because the back of the head is going to be nice and thick. And going from the front, that was too much, which also we're working in orthographic just because it's a little bit easier, while in reality this should be in perspective, but you can't see the background image in perspective, so we're going to work in orthographic just for in general. So we do need to atone for a little bit of perspective for the final rendering because we're not going to render a thing in orthographic. So that is looking pretty darn close to the right proportion, so let's go ahead and start sculpting in some detail. I usually like to start out with the neck, so we're going to come down here using clay, which is C, and we're just going to start adding in some clay here. Like so. Now we have a lump there, we can go ahead and start dragging this down to make our neck. Like so. He has quite a thick neck. And let's drag this out because the neck matches up about with the chin in width. And we really, this is really just an addition and subtraction process. Just add, subtract until it looks right. If you make mistakes, nobody cares. You can fix them. So, this is starting to become pretty cool. Alright, now let's get started on the facial features. I'm wondering if there's a way to bring the background image to the front, which we can, and then just lower the opacity. And this will show us where our eyes are. So we can go ahead and switch to clay again, which is C, and you can hold Control to subtract that. And this will tell us where our eyes are. And we want to go back until we start to see our eye mesh. And you can up or down the intensity of the brush by hitting Shift F, like so. And then we can just sort of sculpt out the eyes, like so. And we also want to go ahead and add in the nose just by sculpting here, and maybe add in a little bit of stuff there. And you also want to make sure that you are paying attention in the side view as well. So for instance, the nose doesn't come out nearly far enough, which we can take care of just by adding some more in and then taking it and dragging it out like so using grab. Grab is G for the hotkey, by the way. And that's pretty cool. So we already have a really awful looking human head. Not bad. Then we want to go ahead and just continue using C for clay to start sculpting in some details. And if there are wrinkles in the face that you want to work with, then okay, this head is tilted up a little bit. In general, this would be much straighter on. So I'm actually going to take a break here and do I want to do that though? We'll work with this. This is alright. Maybe we'll change it. No, I'm going to take a break here. I'm going to pause and then go edit the image. Okay, so I went ahead and edited the reference, so now it's a little bit more straight on facing. So now I'm just going to start sort of trying to match that a little bit better. Like so. So in general, we want to make sure we're matching up in front and side, and this is actually looking very creepy so far. So that means we're doing stuff right. Alright, so once we get this far, what we can do is we don't need the background image to be on top anymore. I mean, that's fine as is. But we want to be able to see our model better. So we're going to send that back to the back and into the back. And now we can see what our model looks like. And we can open up another image editor here and open up the front and side just to get a better idea of what the eyes and stuff are going to look like. So it looks like the eyelids come up over here. So we're going to start sculpting those in until they cover up about half of the iris. And we're going to do the same thing down here. Just sculpt out some nice eyelids. And the closer you get, the more the dynamic topology will subdivide, which is quite nice. We're going to come in here and just sort of sculpt in this feature. And to get creases in the mesh, like these wrinkles right here or that right there, a really good tool is Shift-C for crease. And you can up the strength there and then just sort of crease in the details that you want, like so. So we want the eyelids to come up a good little bit here. And we can smooth that out by holding Shift and just continue sculpting like so. And we're going to use clay again to sort of sculpt in the eyelids some more until they look about right. Right now they look like they need to come in just a little bit more because you'll notice the white over here is much smaller than the white over here. And the top eyelid is going to come up here over the bottom eyelid like so, which we can take care of more in the retopologization, that's not even a word I'm pretty sure, of the model. Okay, so that's looking pretty sweet. We don't want to add too much detail quite yet though, but we do want to get the mouth in the right spot. So I'm just going to draw a line where the mouth is, and that will be quite cool. So with the mouth on the facial topology, you will realize that the top lip goes over the bottom lip, so we're going to go ahead and use Shift-C to sort of go over like that, and use C to go over top like that. And it's also going to be nice and thin. So up until this point is really going to be a mustache, but we're going to use C for clay and just sculpt in some stuff there. Now this all needs to be sculpted down quite a bit. We can sort of take the mouth and you'll notice that it comes into about there. So we're going to just drag it back like so. And that will give us some nice cheeks here too, if we just sort of smooth it all out. So now we're starting to get what looks almost human, but the mouth is a little bit wide, so we'll go ahead and bring that in some. Maybe give him a little bit of a smile. That is all up to you. And we will go ahead and continue sculpting, and the bottom lip as well, which top lip, remember, goes over the bottom lip. And we want this to be nice and round as a chin should be, so we're just going to sort of carve out that detail here using the clay tool. Alright, and we can definitely take this and drag it in some. That looks like an alien head right now. And we really have to rely on both front and side because neither of the views are perfect. And we are going to click here to bring the neck back, like so. Just because of the way that the images are, it will be easiest to make it look like him by doing this. And that is quite cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue sculpting. Let's go ahead and bring out that nose, which looks like it comes out a good bit. So we're just going to sculpt that out like so, and widen it. And then do some nice smoothing. Like so. And that still is not looking at all like him, and that's because up here, and obviously we haven't put enough time into it. We're just gonna again continue start sculpting in some human anatomy features, which right here you'll notice we have these rings, which you can sort of see right here in the image. So we're gonna use our crease tool and just scale it down and then sort of crease in some preliminary wrinkles here, which again we're going to be modifying all this stuff a lot. And the mouth just doesn't look happy. Tan always seems to be happy, which is a good attitude to have in life. So I'm just going to continue pinching this in and sculpting it out. And holding control on crease will crease outwards to create a nice lip there. And then we also want to sort of use the clay brush to sort of bring out the mouth detail here. Like so. Alright, it is starting to look like a person, not like Tan. Also, because we're missing all of the detail. I mean, people are so much more interesting when they show a little bit of age. And Tan definitely shows some character. So, looking at the side, this needs to be much deeper right here, and we can get that by doing that. And we can go ahead and use the crease to sort of crease out the nostril area, like so. I'm going to go ahead and sculpt in some nostrils as well, like so. And it looks like the nose actually comes in a bit further. So we're going to sort of move this around, smooth this area out, maybe clay it a little bit. Let's clay with it. That sounds like play with it, which is funny. But this really needs to come in until it matches the image. And we can smooth all of this out, and we can sort of start to carve this out as well using the clay brush. And we can hold shift to smooth it out nice and neat, and then use the crease to sort of crease it like so. And that mouth is absolutely atrocious right now, so we're going to use our grab to sort of grab pieces of it in, and no mouth wrinkles like that. So we're just going to, again, it's all addition and subtraction, man. Just add and subtract until it looks right. And now it is definitely starting to look more like a person, and we can sort of get the nice circular eye area here by claying that in like so. And then also on people, they tend to have their that cut right there. It would be nice to know the names for all of this stuff, and I probably should before I try to teach it, but I'm not claiming to be a master at this. I'm just showing you my workflow in sculpture, just adding and subtracting until it looks about right. Now generally the edge of the mouth goes to the pupil, so it looks like we're doing all right on that, but we can definitely drag this in to make the mouth a lot more round. The mouth tends to be a nice curve. in my experience anyway. You can feel free to tell me how wrong I am, whatever you want. That is fine. But basically the brushes that I tend to use are Shift-C for crease, G for grab, and C for clay, and then I occasionally use the draw brush. But quite useful, those brushes. You can get just about anything using them. We're going to use the Shift-C to go ahead and get this nice crease down here. Just as a preliminary, we're going to change it later. I just want to see where we're going with this, which means we also need to sort of sculpt out that area as well and then smooth it down. You can go to the smooth brush by hitting S, Shift F to bring up the strength, and now no matter what brush you're in, the smoothing strength will be higher, which for such an early stage in the model we definitely want. And we can go ahead and continue just sculpting around, and always pay attention to what you think might make the model not look like that person. And for one, we need to start bringing out the jaw a little bit stronger. So I'm just going to sort of come in here and bring out the jaw where I think that should be. Then we can smooth it down like so, and it's a little bit smoother here. And then we can also go ahead and start bringing in that chin area like so. And we can use the crease tool to sort of make it nice and subdivided. The neck definitely does not go like that, so we're gonna bring that down like so. And now the jaw goes out way too far, so we can take it and drag it in. We really just wanted that detail there. If you look at the front, this part needs to come in more, which the hair will help with that illusion, but it really needs to be bigger in the back. Not bigger than we have it already, but bigger in the back and thinner in the front. But we also want to make this look like a human skull, so I'm going to start smoothing all of this stuff out. And bringing this in, which it looks like the hair has quite some poof to it. So we want this to look like a human more than we want to try to make it look like Tan at first. As long as it looks like a person, then we can make it look like Tan later. So based on that light right there, this looks like it should be narrower, so I'm going to use the clay brush to sort of brush in like so. And yeah, just going to continue sort of subtracting around here until it looks about right. Maybe smooth that out, maybe bring it in a little bit more, and then crease it some. And we can look at our nice cheat sheet here to get a better idea of what his neck looks like. And also, in general, there is the muscle group that comes down here, like so. So we're going to go ahead and account for that as well on the neck. And there is no like set order to sculpting. You just do it until you're satisfied with the result, which is why this video is probably going to be pretty long. And it's already running at almost half an hour, which is actually doing pretty well considering we've made quite a good bit of progress in making it look like a person so far. And it looks like forehead can come back a little bit like so. And this isn't going to be perfect again because the pictures aren't perfect and our front and side views aren't going to be perfect. Like this is probably not tilted the same way that this is tilted, so we have to account for all of that when we're sculpting, and that's really difficult and probably going to be a complete failure since I'm trying to do this so quickly in one tutorial. So let's go ahead and get some nice ears in here, which I don't know if these, yeah, they match up pretty well. So we're going to go ahead and just sort of use the draw tool, I think, to get a more dramatic edge, and we're just going to sort of draw around. You can see where the topology is appearing. You can't really see what's happening though. We just want to make sure that the ear is in the right place before we do this. And then we can sort of, let's go ahead and get a front view here, just so we can see when we're sculpting down here if it's matching up there. Like so. And we're sculpting in matte cap, by the way, because the shaded tendency of it while not realistic, tends to show off the detail of your model a bit better. So I'm just going to sort of sculpt in this detail here that's in the actual picture and come down here and just sort of crease it like so. Until we have what looks somewhat like an ear. Again, we can make this more accurate ear in the topology right now when we retopologize it later, but right now we're just trying to make the image somewhat look like Tan, which now it's kind of starting to look like a shaved version of him. I think that we can sort of round this out a little bit though, like so. And then we can also definitely smooth this out a little bit and maybe clay it up a little bit more and just continue playing with it. And same with this area, we can sort of, and that's going to be heavily relied on the mustache that we add in a future tutorial, hopefully, if you all like this one. And then yeah, we definitely need some work here, especially up top here. This needs to have some more roundness to it, which makes sense. If you look over here, we have this muscle group here, this muscle group here, and then like right here on the edge, there's just bone, so it's a little bit harder, so we can sort of polish that area off if we want to once we get the roundness right. So we can bring some of this a little bit forward, which we can again bring our reference to the front to see how far forward that needs to be. And we can sort of smooth that out, like so. Which is looking a lot more natural. And then on the side above the ear, like right here, let's go ahead and make sure that's matching up first of all using our front tool. And it looks like it's matching up decently. It's close. Then we can go ahead and add in this sort of muscle depth right here, this muscle patch. And add in that muscle patch and smooth it out a little bit. Maybe use a really light crease just to define where those are for now. And bring that in some. And you can sort of continue sculpting out that ring around the eyes, like so. We can also switch to a different matte cap if we're not liking how this one is looking in both views. And I think that already helped a lot, just having a not red material. And then we can sort of clay this in. It looks like his face is a little bit narrower here. Maybe take this area and sculpt it down to get in some nice cheek deformations. And overall, it looks like, let's go ahead and bring our front image to the front. It looks like the chin area could be narrower, so let's turn the opacity right here. It needs to be narrower. And we can still sort of sculpt this out. Even if this doesn't end up looking like Tan, I'll still post the video, and that way you all can still follow along with it, just to see some sculpting techniques in action. Nose definitely needs to come back some. So I'm just going to sort of sculpt that out until it looks about right. And we can go ahead and sort of, yeah, crease in down here just to get the nose to go further back. also right here. Definitely bring that further back. Especially in the eye area, you'll realize that that goes further back like so. And that is actually starting to look like a person kind of now. Cool. And let's go ahead and I think we can bring up the forehead just a little bit for the sake of our front view, because Ton has a notoriously tall head here. And again, a lot of this is hair poof, so I want to be careful not to make it too tall. But overall, it looks like I can move the image, our background image, a little bit over. Something like that, which will center it a little bit better. And that way we can make it narrower. So bring that back to the back. It looks like overall the head just needs to be narrower. Also, the eyes are no longer right, so I'm going to start sculpting in some detail along the eyes here. Got to get those eyelids in the right spot, or else it definitely won't look right. Like so. This looks like it actually comes further down like that. And this looks like it actually comes further out like that. At this point, I'm probably going to stop using the viewport reference too much, and I'm going to start using just eyeing it. And more wrinkles, like right here. And if we measure out the distance of the eyes, there should be exactly one eye width apart, which is it looks like these need to come in a little bit more. Which, I mean, the eye width, of course, is probably perfect because we measured that out. But, like, the eyelid width between each other is not. And this definitely needs to be a straighter line. Like so. And the mouth is definitely wrong. Which later we're going to want to make the mouth crooked, because Ton has that crooked smile that he always has. And let's go ahead and sculpt in this area again. And try to match that up with what that looks like, which is actually surprisingly not looking too shabby. And a lot of this is covered by that facial hair, which will help a lot. But it looks like his eyes relative to his head should be maybe a little bit bigger. But I don't want to mess with the eyes, so what we can do instead, if we must, is scale down the entire head. Just by sort of grabbing it and moving it in. So he has that nice, boxy, like, cool, chiseled jaw that his beard helps miraculously with. Got sort of that line coming down here, sort of the jaw coming down from the ear. It's that mouth, it just looks so wrong. Also, definitely, of course, need more definition here. So you can sort of sculpt out this area. This part is all about finding the little things that help make it look like him. especially when I'm going so fast in a tutorial. I would feel, in real life, I would spend a heck of a lot more time on other stuff like getting the anatomy right, but we're pressed for time here because I'm trying to go fast. This is a speed sculpting exercise anyway, which is quite alright. I think we can sort of bring out the jaw just a little bit here. Gotta be really careful though not to bring it out too much. We just want to give him that nice wide feeling to it. A lot of that comes from his facial hair. So we might go ahead and sculpt in some facial hair today, just like cartoon style, and then do some realistic hair in a future tutorial, because there's no way we're going to have time to do realistic hair. Not today anyway. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. And it looks like he has these nice creases right here, which are also important because that's where the muscles can help with. And now we're definitely getting a human looking face, but it's still not quite tan, which again, all of that hair, man, is going to help so much. Like if we really wanted to, we could use the Shift-C control and then just sort of turn the dynamic size down to maybe 15 and start sculpting in eyebrows, like cartoon style eyebrows. Maybe we could even use the draw brush for that. Nice bushy eyebrows. Which you can always remove later while retopologizing. We just want to... Maybe I should do this live stream next time so y'all can tell me what looks wrong. Because when you're working on a piece of art, it's always so much harder to tell what looks wrong. Yeah, it looks like that definitely comes from down here more. And it looks like his nose hooks in a little bit more. So let's go ahead and do that too. And I'm going here until I finish. So this tutorial, again, might be really long. Again, it's not really a tutorial. It's more of a, hey, watch me sculpt kind of deal. But hopefully you're sort of getting some good tips out of this, even if it does not end up looking perfectly like tan. Sort of want to smooth that area out some, I think. Maybe bring it in a little bit more. Alright, let's play with this. It's all really minor tweaks. And then a lot of what's going to make it look bad is that it's completely symmetrical right now, or he's completely symmetrical right now. Because in real life, human heads just are not symmetrical. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. No, I'm going to keep the eyebrows there for now just to get a good idea of what it's looking like. And I think we can sort of... everybody has this sort of nice little thing right here. Might be more subtle in some people, but it definitely helps with the realism when you're looking at a human head. There's also some really good apps. I might post links to those in the description of this video. Let me know if I forget. That will tell you that show you like really accurate human anatomy models, so you can sort of follow along with those on your iPad or iPhone or something. They're like maybe $10 a piece, and they're totally worth it. All right. I think that we can go ahead and start sculpting in some cartoon hair, which we can always get rid of later. This will just help us tell if it's starting to look like him or not. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the front view of the image just to sort of try to match it as best as I can. And then turn that back off. And we can sort of come to the side, and it looks like it comes maybe something like that. Whoops, did not mean to do that. And the hair definitely poofs up a good bit. Hey, it's kinda almost sort of starting to resemble him to some extent. Let's continue adding a little bit of hair here. Again, this is a speed sculpting exercise, so it's definitely not going to be perfect, but trying to get it as close to good as possible. Sort of sculpt out the hair a little bit more. This comes down and over around the back. Back of the neck could probably... back of the neck, I'm actually going to pause here and get out my anatomy app. I'll be right back. Okay, so that's reinstalling on my iPad. Apparently I am an idiot and deleted it to make room for some fun game or something. So I'm just going to keep sort of sculpting around here. Maybe adding in some more of the hair detail. Like so. And sort of sculpt that out and sculpt that out. Which this area looks like it goes in a lot more. And of course, I mean, the ear is going to have more detail than that, so we can go ahead and start adding in a little bit of that detail. Like so. Again, using the same three brushes, basically, the clay, grab, and crease. And it looks like this line right here is a bit more prominent from the front. I have a little bit of ear detail in there. And I think the ears are actually going to come out wider because from the front view when it is in perspective, which we're going to go ahead and up the focal length here, maybe 60 or something. Maybe even higher. The focal length in the viewport seems to be a lot more wonky than the focal length in the other views. Maybe 100. But that'll give us a little bit of perspective when we're sculpting, which is quite nice to have. And it's almost sort of starting to look like him, kind of. I mean, the matte cap is not a horribly accurate representation of lighting data, but looks like this area needs to be a bit more prominent, a bit more round, a bit more sharp. It needs to be rounder and sharper. That's funny. And we can also, I mean, if we really wanted to, I'm going to go ahead and save here, but we can go ahead and start sculpting in a mustache just to see what that looks like. Which looks like it goes lots of different ways. Again, you can get rid of this when we retopologize later. I just want to see what it's looking like. So you can also go ahead and sort of start to add in a beard here. Again, just to sort of get an idea of the thickness of it and stuff. And that definitely to get the super fine hair detail, we would definitely need to up the subdivisions, but I don't want my computer to die on me, so not gonna do that. You can do that by changing the detail size down though. 15 is already pretty low though. And we can probably smooth this out. I just wanted to see what it would look like once we started to add a beard in. Which sort of almost looks like it's taking away from it. I think it'll really help to have a more realistic beard though. So I'm going to smooth this stuff out and get back to where we were. Which is... This is a picture of me and him, by the way, at SIGGRAPH. I was kind of the annoying fanboy, because this guy is like one of my biggest heroes, so I must have come off as pretty annoying. But that's alright, it was really cool to meet him. He's a great guy. He didn't act that annoyed with me. But man, I must have been like a groupie or something, minus the wanting to sleep with him. Cool. Looks like we can go ahead and maybe turn down the crease intensity and sort of crease out a chin here. Like so. This is not going to be a very high detail sculpt. Like I said, this is a speed sculpt just to give you some techniques to add to your toolbox of techniques. And it looks like the thing is done installing, so I'm going to look at some anatomy here, which I can't share on screen, unfortunately. But this should be a huge help. Okay. Head. Alright, I'm looking at the head now. And let's go back to the back of the neck. And it looks like this A could be rounder. Although there's no hair on the app. It's just a model. And then we have two muscles that sort of extend down here, like so, and sort of indent here. And adding in details like this is what would really sell the proportions and likeness of it actually being a human. And of course that needs to be concave as opposed to convex. The grab tool is your friend. Now it's actually starting to look somewhat like him, I think. I do think that this area, since it's bone, we can sculpt this up a little bit, but then use the polish tool, or flatten, to sort of get the nice bone right here, which you can see right here. And then sort of, again, sculpt that out and maybe add a little bit of muscle right here. I'm not claiming to be perfect here at all. I'm just sculpting and having fun with it, which is what it's really all about. If you don't enjoy this, then why do it? Let's make sort of it look like a clay sculpture almost. Hey, that is kind of starting to look like him. Not bad. And right now, we're getting close to an hour, so I wanted to time this out to maybe 2 hours for a speed sculpt. So we're doing pretty well, I think. Can sort of sculpt this in, sculpt that down a little bit, and then maybe even bring that in some. Just looking at this image over here. And we can also look at the images over here where he has less of a beard, and that will help us make it look more like him, I think. Make sure you're saving frequently too, because this is not the most stable sculpting tool in the world by any means. Now it's looking almost like a cartoon version of him. I think just because of the lack of shading and the eyes and all that sort of good stuff. But I think the eyelids could definitely use some love here. There's a whole app dedicated to the eye anatomy, which is super helpful, and I happen to have it, which is the same as the overall anatomy app. But we want to go ahead and sculpt in this little thing right here. Looks something like that, according to my app anyway. But I'm going to trust the Human Anatomy app over my eye for what Tan looks like, because it tends to be more accurate. Yeah, that's looking pretty cool. So we're starting to get a nice sculpted sort of clay Tan here. I'm gonna sculpt down the eyebrows some. We just want like the slightest hint of them, since we're gonna add in some hair eyebrows later. And I'm thinking that this needs to probably come out a little bit more, which you can see right here. We have these two muscles, which would explain that. Yeah, that's looking pretty sweet. And not perfect by any means. Probably might not even look like him to you, but he's starting to look like him to me. But now we can spend this next hour just really finessing the sculpt and making it, figuring out what doesn't look like him and what does, and what we need to change. So it looks like we can sculpt this out a little bit rounder, maybe even bring this up so he's more of a smiley guy. And bring this lip up. And then get the clay and sort of sculpt this down. And if we really want to, we can up this back to 25 and collapse short edges, and that will give us less detail, which will make it run a lot faster. And what the collapse short edges does is it does exactly what it says. It collapses the edges that are too small. So like we have this super fine detail here. If we start to draw on it, it will collapse them to make less topology there. Hey, that is not looking half bad. That is a sculpture for sure. But what we can do is, you'll notice that this whole area comes out, so we can sort of start to clay this out a little bit. Maybe something like that, I think. The hair area right here comes out a little bit more, so we can sort of bring that out and smooth that out, and drag it back in a little bit until it looks about right. And that's actually starting to look pretty decent. Like, it's definitely looking like a person now, which is pretty cool. Oh, I did not mean to do that. By the way, hotkey that I learned recently is Shift Z goes into rendered mode in the viewport. Nice to know. I meant to hit Shift C, but whatever. Alright. And I think we can round this out a little bit more. Like so. Maybe sort of crease these in a little bit. Give him more of a lip there, which it looks like his lips are sort of curled in here, but whatever. Top lip comes down to meet there, basically. Yeah, and his lips are definitely curled in here for his smile, but that's fine for when we start to unsymmetrize it and pose it a little bit. Maybe add like a little bit here. Again, it's easy to undo anything, so if it looks wrong, just don't do it. When you're sculpting, it's all about trial and error, what looks right, what doesn't. Starting to look pretty sweet, guys. Not half bad. I think the eyes, this is definitely exaggerating it. The matte cap is. I think the this whole area can be can come out a bit more, and then we can just sort of sculpt in the eyelids there. That was accidentally hitting V, by the way, to go into vertex paint, which I did not want to do. Yeah, it's starting to look pretty cool. I mean, this whole area almost looks like it could come out a little bit more. This whole area can come in a little bit more. And that was too much. Definitely want to enable dynamic again, which because of the vertex paint thing that I clicked, we're just going to get rid of that and collapse some short edges here, because there's just way too much topology here. Sort of smooth that out. We don't need those eyebrows. having some weird issues right here. So I'm just gonna save really fast so I can go back to this, and I'm gonna try something. So it looks like the eyelid goes up underneath this area right here. This flab of an eye piece. Something like that. So then if we add in the eyelid just to test. I think that's definitely working a lot better. And I mean, it makes sense if you're looking at this. I think we can even make the forehead a little bit flatter and make this a little bit sharper. So you can sort of bring this out a little bit more. So, sorry, I've gotten a little bit quiet here. I'm just trying to figure out what looks right and what doesn't. All this fine detail that we sculpt in can be added back as a normal map once we retopologize this to be a low poly animatable thing. And I'm going to go back to my head app on my iPad just so I can get a good view of the side, which it looks like there's a muscle that sort of comes from down here and goes back here, which, looking at his head, actually makes sense. So I want to sort of add that in. Yeah, it's like the temple helps. Yeah, this is looking pretty good, guys and girls, whoever is watching this. Just gonna sort of look at our reference here and sort of sculpt in. You'll notice that I'm not like big on keeping just one view set up. So like I ended up just using this 3D view as a reference view because it ended up being more convenient for me. So just do whatever works for you as far as interface goes with the software. But that is that's looking pretty sweet. What time are we? An hour and 3 minutes, and we're looking pretty good. I am not complaining. It looks like this whole area can come in and the chin can jut out a little bit more. Which means we also need to sculpt in here, because he doesn't have much of a butt chin. He has more of a round chin. Something like that. Yeah, that is looking pretty cool. I am pleased with where this is going. Let's sort of emphasize these creases here. Just a little bit like so. And sort of maybe even bring this down a little bit further. Which means we then need to bring it down further over here too. A lot of people like to use the mask for stuff like this, but for me, it lags and it ends up being a little bit tedious. need to look at my eye. Anatomy app again. Sorry that I can't show you stuff on screen that I'm looking at here. But yeah. Okay, so then this looks like it comes out like that, sort of, but still keeps that crease. It has like a round muscle shape. Yeah, I wish you all could follow along on this app with me, but I would be breaking laws if I shared that. And this whole thing looks like I can grab it sort of down and over a little bit and just sort of sculpt it out. This looks like it comes back a little bit thicker over here, and this is sort of where that piece that I was showing you earlier comes in. This is the piece that I was showing you earlier, that triangle sort of shaped muscle area above the eye here. Yeah, that is not looking half bad, guys. Not at all. And then this area. I think if anything I got this a little bit too flat. Yeah, that's I'm pretty excited. This is actually starting to look somewhat like him. It will never look like him without textures or hair or anything like that. But this is a really good start. Damn good start. I'm pretty happy that I'm recording this. Yes, sirree. I'm thinking we can make the eye color a little bit darker, which it'll help once it's actually shaded and stuff. But if we go into our material, I think we can drag down the darkness. Let's up the opacity here, and let's pick that color, which is still gray, but it's a little bit darker. And we can copy paste and go back to this. Maybe even a little bit brighter. Yeah, whatever object is selected, by the way, has the matte cap on, which is why the eye went matte cap there for a second. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as ton_002. That is looking pretty swell. Just going to sort of round this area out a little bit more so it looks more like him. And important is that we see what he looks like from different facing angles as well. So from like here, it's not quite looking like him because we need to bring this whole thing in, even it out some. But from the front and about 3/4, it's starting to look pretty good. I think we can sort of push this in a little bit. I think we can make the nostrils a bit more prominent as well. So, I think we can sort of bring those up a little bit. And that is not half bad. Well, it could be a little bit rounder. And some of you sculpting professionals out there are probably scoffing at how slowly I'm picking up on a lot of this detail, but I don't sculpt very often. This is not my main forte. I'm just doing this for fun. So it's whatevs. It's whatevs, man. Sort of try to get some nice round nostrils here. I'm going to look at my head anatomy again. And sort of push that in. So again, not really a tutorial this week. It's more of a, hey, look, we're sculpting kind of thing. Do whatever you want this week, I guess. Again, hopefully, I hope you enjoy this video or find it useful to some extent. And if not, I hope you can at least like watch the time lapse and enjoy that, because time lapses are always pretty fun. Generally, this area is not pushed out in real life. That's mostly the mustache that's doing that. So I'm going to sort of bring this area and sort of straighten it out a little bit, maybe make it even concave a little bit. And we are definitely getting somewhere. Yeah. Sort of crease that a little bit more. Looks like this whole skin flap gets in a bit closer. And that is no longer round enough at all. Needs to have better gradation. And the lips look wrong. So you can start to sort of fix those. Like so. And not looking bad. Definitely needs a mustache, but we can add that in later. This anatomy app mostly shows the muscles, it doesn't show it skinned, so I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring out what this area looks like skinned. But overall, I am fairly pleased with what this is looking like. Again, this area right here is bone, so we want to make sure to emphasize that that's sort of not like that necessarily, but definitely flatter there. And looking pretty good. This is why people sculpt, by the way, because it's a heck of a lot faster than trying to model it out by hand using the plane by plane or box method. because then we can retopologize it later to match good topology. It's just so much easier to sculpt out an idea and then retopologize it later, because if the idea doesn't work, you know really soon when you're sculpting. If you're trying to model it out, you won't know until the end if it's working or not. Very cool. And let's go ahead and bring down these muscles which come from behind the ear. I tried to add them in earlier, but it was too early. They come in from behind the ear and down to the base of the neck. And it looks like we lost our dynamic topology when we were editing the eyes, which we definitely want. Okay. We can bring this out, and we can sort of add maybe a little bit of a shoulder here if we wanted to make it sort of a bust. I don't think I'm going to. I'm just going to keep it at the head for the sake of time and giving us more time to finesse this. But overall, that is looking pretty cool. Muscles, everyone's got them. And you can sort of, I mean, having these little like indentations and stuff actually kind of helps sell it. He's a person with some character and age. So especially since it's just such a fast speed sculpt with low detail. Sort of round this out a little bit more, I think. And go back to my eye app just to see what all this area should look like. Oh my gosh, I keep hitting vertex paint, and that's bad news because it turns off the dynamic topology every time. I might change that hotkey in my preferences if I continue sculpting a lot. Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. I think we can maybe bring the cheek out a little bit more here. According to the anatomy sheet, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but hey, people have fat there. I'm gonna undo everything I just did because it looks bad. I liked it better without that. Sort of sculpt this area in a little bit, maybe even just like sort of drag it in. Sort of round out the skull there, because nobody has a square-shaped head. If they do, they should probably get some medical attention, because they were not born that way. can also turn off the grid lines in the display just because it can be annoying when we're trying to sculpt here. In ZBrush, there's a nice feature where if you just click somewhere, your camera will now rotate around that point, which I don't think that applies in Blender. But hey, it's whatever. Whatever you're used to, I guess. Which I am by no means, I wouldn't say I'm used to ZBrush, but it was a nice feature to have it be able to rotate around whatever you're sculpting on. Round out this whole area a little bit. Using a variety of tools, because you'll notice right here that it sort of rounds. That helped, even from the front view, I think. I'm looking at this right here. And sort of pronounce this area a little bit more. Yeah, I think this is looking pretty good. Okay, 122, we've got a little bit left in our timeline. So I want to make sure everything is looking pretty good. And sort of round this out some more to make it look more like a human head. Maybe even crease this in a little bit. I think that's starting to look decently like Ton. I'm probably going to look at this next week and be like, what the hell was I thinking? That doesn't look like Ton at all. That's what I tend to do with my sculptures. When you look at something for too long, you just sort of start to believe it looks like what you want it to look like. So it's always a really good idea, by the way, to take your artwork and just let it sit for a while and then come back to it. By the way, red for clay on the circle, blue is the crease, grab is green, and draw is, I guess the addition stuff is red, subtraction, blue, and then grab green. Yeah, I think this is looking pretty sweet. I'm really curious what it looks like with a beard, though. One way you can approach that, I really want to wait for another video to approach that. Huh. You're tempting me. No, I don't have time for that tonight. We don't have time for that in the tutorial. I don't want to keep you here forever. I'll approach that in a future tutorial. Got me. You were close to getting me. Very close. But alas, no. Plus, and he doesn't always have a super big beard or anything. Sometimes he has a small one. But for the sake of this being a speed sculpt, I'm going to save this as underscore hair. And we're going to sculpt in some cartoon hair just to make it a finished-ish piece. So I'm going to come in here really close and just sort of start to sculpt in a mustache. Like so. And I'm going to go ahead and enable dynamic again, of course, and maybe turn it down to 15 to get some nice fine detail in there. You want to go back and forth between adding and subtracting so you don't have this giant lump of mesh that shouldn't be that way. So you can do that by holding control and alternating holding it. And then we can sort of just smooth it out to make it look sort of like a clay stash. We can do the same thing with the beard. You go down to 7. Add some real fine detail in here. No, I'm not liking how this is looking at all. I'd rather just use some real hair. What we can do though, yeah, I'm gonna go back to the other version. Definitely. But what we can do is sort of add in just some pores, and how you can do that is by adding a new brush texture. You'll notice that it shows up on the brush, and then we can up the contrast, and we can see that over here take effect, and turn down the depth and turn down the scale of it. And then we can up our topology, enable dynamic again, of course, and we can change the detail size down to about 10, and then just sort of add some pores. Definitely here around the beard area for sure. We can go to our smoothing and change the strength to much lower. We just want some skin detail in here, I think, is what it's really missing. Our texture went off. Maybe where the beard is, we can make it a little bit more intense. But we really want it all over the place. Again, you can alternate the plus and minus and then just sort of smooth it out using the smooth brush, just to get some variation. That is looking pretty. Just having some skin detail at all, especially for someone with as much, like, he looks like a wise old guy, kind of. I mean, younger than that, of course, no like super long beard or anything, but definitely needs some age on his skin because he's not like 20 years old. adjustments here. I think maybe a thinner neck. I think that's looking pretty decent, guys. What else? Oh yeah, we also need to sort of pose it after we smooth this out a little bit more. Just having the slightest amount of skin detail there helps. Then we can give him that nice Ton signature crooked smile if we want to. And how we can do that is turning off the X symmetry. I'm going to save this as 3. And then we can just sort of grab this side of the mouth and move it up. Yeah, that adds a lot of character. We can also start to unsymmetrize the eyes a little bit here. Just give him some character. Because, like I said, nobody has a perfectly symmetric face, so any little character details you can add, definitely go for it, man. Or woman. I don't want to sound sexist, because I'm not. Yeah, adding that signature Ton crooked smile helps a lot. When we're symmetrizing, when we're retopologizing, definitely gonna have to get rid of that and can add it back in like with our rigged feature. But for now, works pretty well. Sort of round out these lips a little bit, I think. Will help some. And that, still got plenty of time here to finesse. But that is basically how you speed sculpt. You just sort of look at it and go for it. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel. I'm releasing a new video every week, and if you liked looking at sculpting stuff, I can do more sculpting videos in the future, no problemo. I think we can sort of unsymmetrize the wrinkles here a little bit too. Yeah, let's swap to, let's flip our picture in front here. And not perfect, because okay, there's definitely some stuff we can fix. I think namely the eyes are too big, but hey, still for a speed sculpt, not half bad. I think we did a pretty good job here. I do think that we can add some more fluffy volume to his hair. And it has a, I might just be crazy here, but I think it has a pretty decent likeness to Ton. Maybe a little bit. Feel free to criticize me to all hell in the YouTube comments, that's fine. But 2 hours, not half bad, guys. not even 2 hours. I'm just going to keep sculpting here so I can fill out the time limit that I promised you. Let's get some better angles of him. Let's sort of sculpt in a little bit of detail here. We're no longer symmetrized, so we have to do it on both sides if we want to. Of course, having a lack of symmetry can help. I think that's a pretty decent sculpture for 2 hours, guys and girls, and anybody that might be watching this. That was a good save, Chris. Chop chop, huzzah. I'm not even sure what I'm saying anymore. Again, this isn't really happening on the other side because we unsymmetrized it or took off the mirroring. But hey, whatever. We can do it on the other side too. We have the technology. Let's see. We don't really have a good, great 3/4 view of Tan. It looks like this whole area can come in some. And that is not what I wanted to do at all. This looks like maybe a little bit more cheek volume. This is stuff that we should be doing symmetrized, but whatever. It's whatevs. Whatevs, y'all. And that muscle is right there. Of course, I guess I'm just gonna undo that. It's not really helping us, not really helping our case here. Yeah, that's not half bad for, again, just such a small timeline of doing this. Maybe we can round out the chin a little bit. That helps. I think that's pretty decent. I mean, for not having hair or anything, no eyebrows or anything like that, which we can add later if we want to. I'm going to call this like its own tutorial because I'm not making any promises to finish retopologizing and adding hair. But I do think they could make for interesting tutorials in the future. Please let me know what you think on that topic. Again, has to look good from every angle, since it's a 3D model and not just a drawing. What else is off? I'm gonna spend this whole 2 hours that I promised you. I don't know if I even promised you 2 hours. That's just what I had in my head for the timeline for this speed sculpting demo. Might do more damage than good at this point. So you look at something for so long, you're bound to make mistakes. But when he's smirking like this, his signature Tan crooked smile, This is wrinkled and this is stretched out, so let's try that. Maybe not quite so strong. And just have like the smallest little crease that there ever was. I think we can definitely come back into our texture and sort of texture this area to all hell. It would be nice to actually have an image of skin pores, which I'm sure you could find on Google, but for the time limit here I didn't feel like doing that. Not a bad sculpture. Probably doesn't look exactly like him or anything, but it's not a bad effort. I'll give it a B. B for decent, which is not a word, but it sounds like decent. No, that's not necessary. Alright, I mean, we can even see what it looks like lit. Like right now it just has the matte cap, which a lot of times going out of matte cap, since we sculpted in matte cap, will make it lose any likeness that it had. Or we'll take that risk just for kicks and giggles, which is apparently not a common expression like I thought it was. Yeah, you'll notice that the details are a lot more visible when you're in the matte cap. Notice all of the crevices and everything. Probably need to sharpen those up a little bit for the actual model. But adding some reflection here will help too. So if we say use nodes, go over here to the node editor and shader, mix, shader, glossy, get some of that detail back. Maybe put it at 0.3 or 0.35 and lower the mix percent. He's pretty shiny. He's a shiny dude. He's a shining star. We can actually just pick straight from the skin and lighten it up because that area is kind of in shadow. Add some fill here. Not like a person named Phil, but some Phil light. Still not half bad. It looks better in matte cap, of course, because that's what we sculpted in. But I think it's still a pretty decent effort. Pretty decent. Will look better with hair and stuff. I think that definitely needs to be a future tutorial category. Let's go back to matte cap. And I'm looking for final tweaks here, just because I have the time and just because I want it to look as good as possible for 2 hours. And to me it looks like this whole area comes out a bit more, and this whole area maybe goes in a bit more. maybe we can sharpen up these details here for when we light it. Just sort of sharpen it up a little bit. Maybe bring this down some. And looks like this area needs to be sharper right here. Sort of crease it in a little bit more. Hey, not bad. Not bad at all. We can even turn that off and maybe even turn the glossiness down. That adds a lot more detail. I want some bounce light there, but not very bright. Okay, one more thing. I think that is this. No, it's got some to do with the whole perspective versus orthographic issue. This is about to mess up. Oh no, I don't have him selected. Gotta have what you're working with selected. I think we can up the width here some to show the hair more in the perspective. So now the head will relatively look thinner in perspective. Well, this looks pretty straight to me in the image. So I think we might be able to leave it somewhere close to that. Maybe get a camera. Like so. And smooth out that area just a little bit, I think. Overall, I think the eyes are a bit too big, for sure. Maybe. But at least from the front view, it's not looking half bad. I think you can have more hair volume though. So let's take a look at our camera here and just sculpt to camera a little bit to get some of that hair volume in. And to sort of bring this in a little bit. I think overall that will help. And we can hide these lights because they're getting really annoying. So the shape of the head, this could definitely come up. I think that's definitely helping some. I think we can also give the camera a little bit of an angle, like so. Still looks better from orthographic, which means the ears can come out more, which definitely makes sense. Like so. I think that's looking pretty swell. So let's go ahead and I was about to call it quits, but I'm not satisfied with this nose bridge right here quite yet. Keep noticing the little things. Regardless, this is just a speed sculpt. Doesn't have to be super accurate, super great, but I think for what it is, it turned out pretty well for a fast sculpture. So let's go ahead and call it quits. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to catch a new video every Tuesday, please make sure you subscribe, and you can follow me on Twitter where I announce the videos at cfolia, twitter.com/cfolia. Again, hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, comment, tell me what I did wrong, tell me what I did right, and I will see you all next Tuesday.